I might start a fire. I'm losing all control, I'm giving in to desire. Climbing over restless limbs, all tied up in knots from loving him. I'm going crazy, been going crazy. Being a jailbird, I'm burning down the walls to light up the front door, tearing down the holes to see the light once more. Jailbird, not gonna be a jailbird anymore. I don't feel any better now that I'm at my old dark cell. Maybe I'll be cold without my protective shell. But all I know is I won't grow, being captive to your control.
Hello, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to week 2 of the Fair Education Impact Festival. So great to see so many of you here for this session, which has been definitely one that I've been really looking forward to over the last week or so. Such an important topic, and we have the fantastic Jerrel Jackson here to lead us through today's session. So looking forward to spending the next hour and a half with you. So before we start, I'll just introduce myself and the team that are here to support today. So I'm Sam, co-CEO of the Fair Education Alliance, and supported today by Ellie, who is our office manager. Ellie just gave everybody a wave if you can see her. Cheyenne's just joined us for the beginning, but I think will be dropping off soon, who is head of our Innovation Award, which I'll tell you about soon. And then Lauren is just jumping in and out doing our comms stuff. So if we can just go on to the next slide, please. So for most of you, you may have been on other Impact Festival sessions already. You may have seen this before, but for those of you who are just joining, a reminder of the Fair Education Alliance. We are a coalition of over 200 organisations who have a shared vision that no child's success should be limited by their socio-economic background. You can see all of our members there, and the Impact Festival over these 2 weeks is for you all to meet and connect with each other, learn about different topics and experiences, insights and evidence about how we can work together to tackle educational inequality more impactfully. And the other reason is, if you just go on to the next slide, we are have open applications for our Innovation and Entrepreneurship Awards. So these are open to early stage ideas for the Innovation Award, and for the Entrepreneurship Award is for FEA member organisations who want to innovate internally. So the window is open until the 18th of May, and the awards are a £15,000 salary contribution, one-to-one strategic support, and the other range of features of the programme that you can see there. And it's a bit of a taster during the Impact Festival of the type of experience you'll get. So learning from others, learning from peers, and learning from people who've been there, done that, got the t-shirt in running early stage initiatives. There's a couple of sessions in the next 2 days as well to learn more specifically about those awards. So you can see tomorrow and Friday we have sessions on the Innovation Award, and on Friday we've got another one on the Entrepreneurship Award if you want to find out more about those as well. So Cheyenne, if you can stop sharing slides now, that would be great. And to get us started, before I hand over to Jerrel Jackson, we're going to get you talking about this important topic that we're discussing today. So we're about to break you out into small breakouts, and we'd love you to make connections, introduce yourselves. And the question we'd like you to discuss is, how can the education sector address racial inequalities head on? So it's going to go in the chat now, and it's how can the education sector address racial inequalities head on? So we'll break you into breakouts now. And then the only other thing to say is right throughout the session, if you can join in on social media as well. Ellie's put there in the chat the social media hashtags and things as well. So join in on social media, and then we'll break you out now into breakouts and discussing the question, how can the education sector address racial inequalities head on? So we'll break into breakouts now. Hello, welcome back everybody. I'll just make sure that everyone's settled back. So I hope you had some insightful conversations and either met someone new or reconnected with someone you haven't seen in a while. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over for the main event to Jerrel, otherwise known as Jay. I should be quite, yeah, Jay, who is from Creative Academies Network, and we're so delighted for him to be leading this session today. So I'll hand over to you, Jay, for the remainder of the session.
Thank you very much, Sam. And I do apologize. I'm still getting this habit of keeping my mic on mute like everybody else. So I'm just kind of setting the tone there for everybody else to make those mistakes as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Hopefully it all works. Oops. Sorry, bear with me a second. Sorry. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for everybody for joining me this afternoon, and I hope your day has been as smoothly as mine. And hopefully it's not raining where you are, because it's raining in the Birmingham and Black Country area. So hopefully it's sunny where you are. So my topic today is more about Mind the Gap, addressing racial inequalities head on. So as I like to do, in regards to these kind of conversations, I'm gonna give everybody the permission. This is not a presentation. This is more a provocation about developing a call to action and a response to what's going on at the moment. So before I kick off, I'm gonna just introduce myself. So my name is Jerrel Jackson. I define myself as him, he and him. I am Black. I'm wearing black clothing. I've got short black hair, and I've got a collage of photos behind me. That is how I identify myself. So for also identifying myself, there's my Twitter handle. So please join the conversation post this event by using I am Jerrel on Twitter. But hello, everyone. So I lead an organization that's called Creative Academies Network, known as CAN. We're an organization that supports children and young people to reach their full potential. So we use creativity, we use art, we use culture, but more importantly, we're all about developing cultural, social, and economic change. But within my role, I've developed other roles outside of it. So I lead on culture education in the Samoa area. I'm an advisor for Arts Council England and the Department of Education. I also sit on national boards that supports culture within the West Midlands Combined Authority. So I have very much roles which really is about supporting children and young people to reach their potential, but also the development of placemaking initiatives. So the big question, which you've already started, how can the education sector address racial inequalities? What a broad statement. So I'm actually going to open up the conversation to kickstart straight away. How do people find approaching such a broad statement at the beginning of an amazing day that you're going to have ahead of you? So let's open up the conversation. If whoever wants to take the mic off mute and just say, how did you approach this question?
I'm happy to start. Hi everyone, I'm Jenny. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm from Inter University. We found this question very hard. It's quite a broad question, and I had the conversation with Kate, and we were like, where do we start? So where we started was to just think about the different aspects that we could potentially break down. So we thought about the curriculum, the staff body, but that doesn't even go into policies or anything like that. So that's quite hard. But we then spoke about representation. So having representation in all subjects, a diverse staff body, but also creating an inclusive environment. And then we also spoke about like programs that will help support development of people from different races, and then it cut off. So not a lot to speak about in 3 minutes, but that's where we got up to.
Thank you very much for sharing. Anybody else? I'll go all at once before I pick someone.
I'm happy to jump in.
Thank you.
So I'm Katie, I'm from Envision and my pronouns are she, her. So I was chatting to Sanju, I believe it is, and I think we also struggled with it in such a short amount of time and covered some of the things that you said, Jenny, as well. But equally, we were kind of talking about specifically kind of curriculum and saying, you know, there has actually been changes that have started to be made, but giving flexibility in curriculum might be something that's really key. So tailoring things to the class, being able to tailor things to the classroom and having a space to have conversations that might be uncomfortable, and having the training for staff to have those conversations and those safe spaces being created is something that we think is quite key in education. But also, you know, the policies and top-down stuff is equally as important. But I think we were just saying, as we got cut off, it's trying to make sure that everyone's not trying to do different things and we stay communicating, otherwise everything's just going to be a bit crazy, I suppose.
No, and that's the key point, isn't it? There's a lot of craziness and it's quite broad. There's kind of different themes that we need to look at. But you know what's quite interesting though? Even though that we've had 2 moments of feedback, we didn't really talk about children and young people. We didn't talk about how they're experiencing racial inequalities. We've talked about the organizations and the infrastructure that sit around them, but that's the biggest topic. Like, are we highlighting maybe some of the wrong things, or are we prioritizing other things over which we may think we've got more control over? So I'm going to make it very quite clear that this is more of, as I said, this is a conversation, which I'm going to unpick through previous work that we've done as an organization. But I want to make it very quite clear. This is not me about just presenting stats or figures. This is all about us creating call to action that we can take into our workplace, because as I say, we can go into Google and find out the stats regarding racial inequalities in education. But what you're getting here right about now is about a call to action that we collectively as a movement can start to take action within our own workplaces, in our practices, or even more importantly, the conversation that we may interact with children and young people. So if we want to start to highlight some of these issues, I'm going to give you guys now two minutes to go into the chat and tell me, what do you think are the issues that young people are experiencing education inequalities from the perspective of children and young people? And we may throw a bit of the adult-centric approach to it, but what do you think children and young people are experiencing? So 2 minutes in the chat. It could be one word, it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph. But I want you guys as an opportunity just to file something down. 45 seconds. Thank you very much for sharing some very interesting issues that really looks at what young people see. So anything that I'm going to now share with you, I'm going to be very open and direct. So I'll be using language that's either associated to the language that we use with young people. So I would say, as an example, I would, rather than referring to organizations because of their strengths, I might say some children like Dixie's and some like Nando's and some like KFC. You know, so it's very much about approaching it in a way that we all can relate to it, rather than giving you the acronyms and the isms and the political talk. It's more about how we can take away from this so we can have some of these open and frank conversations with young people or policy or people that we interact with. Because as I said at the beginning, I'm here to help support, develop a movement. And I'm not here to provide very targeted training as such. It's about how we can really take this moving forward. So I'm going to go back to my slides. So as part of developing this or this approach, as an organization, we've developed a model called the Listen, Learn, Lead, Live, Love and Life approach. We really understood the importance of deconstructing this. And we took young people through a process of understanding what does it really mean to them? And we've really embedded that as an organization. How do we listen? How do we learn from them? How do we help support them to lead or them to lead us? How can we ensure that we start to develop and live a better and love a better life? So this is going to be a model of principles of working that we're going to take everybody through this journey. So I would like everybody to raise their hand if they've got their camera on, if you want to be part of this bus, that we're going to discover this journey and who's on board. So let's raise your hands if you're on board to be having frank, open conversations this afternoon. And for those who haven't got their cameras on, I would love to see a kiss mark or some emoji in the chat so we know that you're active to be part of this conversation. Thank you very much. So as I said before, this was part of a wider conversation that we had with young people. So we started to take this modern way of working, and this is an alliteration of a big draw that we listen to young people about issues around inequalities and injustices that they've been experiencing. I'm going to zoom into this because it's maybe not that quite clear for everybody. They told us their issues. So we was really wanting to listen to them, what was more important. And I'm going to zoom in very particular points as part of what the theme of this session is all about. But they were telling us these are the issues that they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Okay, I'm going to flick to the slide. So I'm going to, sorry. And the most important part is, I want to highlight this part, young people wanting hope, and the hope to be able to live a better life. And as you may see, it's not about hope to earn the most money. It's very much about them wanting to be alive and to thrive as well as surviving. So this is going to be the conversation that we're going to have now. It's not about silence anymore. We need to stand up and shout about these issues, because we're taking young people through that journey to understand what are their rights. We've really taught young people about their rights and the importance of their rights. But we as adults, are we really giving them the opportunity to explore or exploit those? So there was loads of topic and there was loads of things shared in the chat. But how much is that really your voice or the young person's voice? And I'm going to open up the room. And I would like people to be honest. If you made a comment, was it really a child's approach to that voice, or was it the adult-centric approach to it? The reason why I'm asking for this, because we're going to go into some very important topics and we need to understand everybody's vulnerability. So if somebody can share if they was being honest about it or not, because this is where we have to help support the direction, especially when talking about race. So can somebody please share if their approach was really a true reflection, or it may have been? People are scared.
I'd like to share. I wasn't actually in the breakouts, but I think I wasn't in the breakouts, but I think, Jay, you make a really great point that I think, particularly I think as a white person talking on these issues and as an adult talking on these issues, you can often, because of the nervousness and this treading on eggshells, I think you can use more, I don't know, try and be sophisticated about it, or try and be academic about it to try and overcome that feeling of nervousness. And I think when you made the challenge about actually what would a young person be thinking about these issues, my mind thought about it completely differently to how it did when I first thought about the questions. So yeah, I think I really appreciate the challenge to be like, think about this honestly in straightforward talking language rather than in the frame that you normally would. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Sam, for sharing that. Is there anybody else that would like to share?
I don't mind sharing. Yeah, I agree with what Sam said. It was really interesting, actually, when you said, like, is that being framed from your perspective or the child's? And the things that I put in the chat, like, I do believe, and I think that's what kids are feeling, but it's I think, because actually it's only other adults, it's only other surveys conducted by adults and research conducted by adults that have told me this. It's not, I've not actually sat down with children or young people and them said, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I need.
No, thank you so much. And that is the most important part. It's about the difference between the wants and the needs. And we're going to establish that through the kind of further breakout rooms that we're going to have. But I want to just give you guys a bit more supporting context. Okay, so as a thought leader and a thought provoker, I'm going to be open and honest because this is the room for that. Whilst I haven't been a victim of racism, I've been a victim of inequality. Inequality that I've had to work so hard to get to this position where I am today. So a person who may have been from an urban area in the Birmingham district, which may, for those who know Birmingham, that was part of Handsworth, I was always told that I was going to live a very particular life. So that life would be that you're going to be associated to gangs, you're going to continue in menial jobs, and that you as living in a single parent family, you was only going to have some form of aspiration. That's what I was told. And you know who told me that? That was a school leader that told me that. That's what the stereotypes of your people would achieve. For many people, that was always the challenge which then my mother took on. She took on of how can you tell my child in year 6 that he could not have those kind of level of aspirations. And so what she did, she fought for my education. She fought for me to want to achieve. She fought to give me the best opportunities as a single mother that she could give. So I could have access to math tuition, which she paid for. So I could have access to enrichment activities and sport, which, to be totally honest, sport wasn't my thing. I was more of the kind of creative dancer, to be totally honest with you, but that's another story. But I was taught to be somebody else, but my mom taught me I needed to be something that she believed I could achieve. So I went on to school. I got GCSEs, really good GCSEs as well, because that school taught me the importance of self-identity. Some people might question character education was a part of that, or that was a means of developing moral values or grit and resilience. But what I got, no theory can define what I was given. And that goes back to that concept of love. Love, because I was being taught how to love what I would like to aspire to achieve. So I went then on to university, got again another degree, and which was more rewarding, that I believed that I could have achieved that. Systems were telling me that I could only aspire to be to reach that far. So I got my degree, but then I thought, you know, I want to challenge the status quo and then get a master's on top of that. So by coming out of that, I was all about trying to challenge what people may perceive or believe what my journey would be. Then following that, so I'm giving a bit of context so it helps you then into this next part of this conversation or breakout rooms. I then developed a skill set that people saw me as a thought leader or thought provoker, because I would just tell you how it is. I would just keep it simple. So when I was going through university, I stumbled on particular issues. There was a system that was talking about identity and culture, which I challenged. So I felt I was being challenged. I was challenging them because it was coming from the wrong voice. And it wasn't coming from people that looked like me or sounded like me, but they was defining what culture should look like when we're talking about being from the African diaspora. Whilst we might have not have had terms around culture responsive teaching or CRT or critical race theory at that time, I knew there was an importance to position myself in a way that I would demonstrate that lived experience. So I then, at the age of 21, I helped the university to create a module that reframed what cultural identity was. Because it was important for me to establish that if I want to support the legacy of the generation, I had to put a stop on a particular issue. So then I've co-designed this whole approach to things. The reason why I'm telling you this is because silence no more. I had to stand up and not be counted, but stand up, because I'm not here to be a statistic, which my predecessors may have thought I would be. I'm standing up as Jerrel Jackson, because I am now proud to shout what this issue is all about. So by shouting, I've gone back to academia. So I'm now finishing off my doctorate around cultural inequality, but then focusing that energy so nobody can come to me and tell me you're not qualified enough or experienced enough. But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. And for me, that's the most important part. So now we're going to go into a conversation that is going to be about you, but you're going to have to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to establish that you are going to ask yourself very interesting questions. Am I the right person to be talking about this issue? Am I the right person to be explaining race to my peers? Am I the right person to actually start to say, you know, we are getting this wrong? Or we're actually doing some amazing things, but how can we develop it? So we're going to take this model of the listen, learn, lead, live and love model, and we're going to deconstruct it into the breakout rooms. Is everybody up for that challenge? Are you with me? Raise your hand if you're with me. Thank you. So we're going to go out. So we're going to go into the first one, and I'm going to give you context. We're going to now deconstruct that broad statement. But in your breakout rooms, please discuss the ways you are currently listening about race in your own organization, school, and more importantly, children and young people. So really now this is the time we're going to allocate 10 minutes. Now firstly, we're going to allocate 5 minutes. So Ellie, we're going to allocate 5 minutes first. I want you then to come back, and then you're going to go back for 5 minutes to continue that conversation. And I know it's going to be very difficult. And it's also going to be very difficult, and I'm being very honest, when the majority of the room is made up of other people. And that's being very totally honest with you. So whilst I'm talking as a minority, I'm making it very quite clear, my voice is the majority. So I want you to be able to take the majority voice into the conversation. Don't feel that your understanding is a minute element to that. So don't make you being the majority, the minority, really amplify that's the status that you've been given. So please spend your time wisely for the next 5 minutes when you go into your breakout rooms, and I'll be popping along. So as I explained before, this isn't just a presentation, this is a call to action. So spend your 5 minutes wise, and I'll be with you shortly. Ellie, over to you. Okay, for people coming back, I know it might have felt a bit abrupt in the way that you may have come back, but you're gonna go back. It was very much more just a sense check, and we're gonna go back to that same question, because I think sometimes having these kind of conversations for people straight away could be quite overwhelming. Okay, so we are gonna go back. Does anybody have any immediate questions that may have arose or want clarity? Please put your hand up now, or we'll put it into the chat so we can just acknowledge it before you go back in. Brilliant, that's great. Okay, so over to you, Ellie. 5 minutes. As everyone joins back. Okay, so I'm going to ask a few people just to present or kind of share what their group may have been saying. And it could be one word or two, or you can put some of the things in the chat. But one thing that I would like for us to acknowledge, and I do apologize, I should have contextualized this as well. When you introduce yourself, I would like for you to introduce what you define as your identity. So as an example, what I did before, my name is Jerrel Jackson. I am Black. I define myself as Black, and I use the pronouns he and him. I'm wearing a black top, and I've got a very interesting, colorful background behind me. So it helps to establish people's identity. So who would like just to kind of quickly share that in response to that listening exercise? I'm going to pick on people if I don't see things in the chat. I'm just letting everybody know. I'm going to look at, and don't try not looking away because I'm going to then choose you. Hi there, Kate. How you doing?
I was moving the chat window over to the other screen, so I wasn't looking away from you. Sure, I was pausing. Oh, let me identify myself. So I'm Kate, and I've got brown curly hair. And I am white and identify as female, and I've got a cat under the bed who might make an appearance at some point. And yeah, I think probably like other people as well, struggling to kind of summarise what we talked about, because there was a lot of things we talked about. So organisational changes that the three of us in our group have made, and also about ways to listen to young people. One of the things we were just finishing on was the balance between listening to especially young people while not giving responsibility to people from minority ethnic backgrounds to solve the problem or even identify the problem for you, you know what I mean? So making a space without making it a requirement or another onerous thing on them, a responsibility on them.
Wow. Now, thanks for sharing that. I think there's some really interesting points there for definite, and hopefully everybody can be like, I can see nodding, so that's always a good sign, and I think people accepting what you're saying is really good. I'm just going to pick one more person. Naomi, over to you. Thanks, Kate.
I'm Naomi. I'm white Welsh, and my pronouns are she, her. And I identify as a activist and a campaigner. And what we were talking about in our group was a lot around how we ensure that listening comes right from the kind of top, and that representation is there, so that space is safe to kind of that young people that attend. And we kind of talked about the two levels, and of kind of like, you've got young people who are attending maybe a program you run, but you've also got maybe the young people that are helping deliver things that you're doing. So they might be on a panel talking at an event, and how you ensure that kind of you put that time in to make sure that that's representative, and that there's kind of always learning to be done there. And sometimes it is more time intensive and takes more time, and potentially more resource, but that's worth doing for the benefit of making sure that listening space is really open.
Thank you very much. That whole being transparent, authentic is very, very important to start to take on these topics. It's really crucial. All right, we're going to go into another breakout because it's all about trying to lead towards this call to action. Okay, so the topic of the next breakout, and you're going to go back into your same groups, is to learn. Okay, please discuss how you're learning about race, your own organization, schools, as well as from children and young people. Ellie, can we make this one 8 minutes, please? Is that all right? Is that okay? So guys, again, same thing, get straight to the point, talk, listen, yeah, follow the principles, yeah? Ellie, over to you. Guys, I know it feels ruthless, but you know what's quite interesting? The conversations are very open and honest. That is the most crucial part of this. And I really appreciate people coming with their true self rather than maybe leaving that bit of the organizational stuff to the side just a little bit. So, you know, it's quite nice that people are starting to establish this separation. But I'm going to let you guys know you're going to go back out into another breakout room. It's all about bringing the thought to the end to create that call to action. So I'm just going to share with you what the next point is. How are we going to lead? Okay, please discuss how or will you lead change on the topic of race. Sorry, there's a few problems in this. Topic of race in your own organization. So I do apologize. For a person with a learning disability as well, I might get a few things wrong. So please discuss how or will you lead change on the topic of race in your organization or schools with children and young people at heart. Remember, children and young people. So Ellie, 8 minutes, please. Okay, time is of the essence, isn't it? It's going really quickly. Does everybody feel like it's going really quickly? Yeah, okay. And Ellie, I'm also just being mindful of time because, these conversations are very important. So we've got another breakout, but Ellie, I'm going to merge this together so it gives 10 minutes for the call to action at the end. So hopefully we'll be back by 20 past. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen quickly, but I'm going to merge this together. Okay. Okay, so I want you to mix between through the lived experience. So please discuss how you like those with living with racial disparities to overcome these barriers. But I want you guys also to incorporate the whole love and life element, because they kind of work together anyway. So how would you start to build that fairer future that allows everyone to love life equally in their own organization, schools, but also how young people can interact with that? Yeah. So I would like for everybody to spend up until 20 past having this quick conversation about this, but I want to be able to spend the last 10 minutes on a very important topic, what's going to bring this all together. Okay. So see you shortly.
Sorry, Jake, could you go back a slide?
You might want to broadcast those 2 questions. I'm not sure if everyone caught them. Have you got them? You're on mute.
Yeah, I've got the slides. I'll just broadcast.
Cool, perfect. Yeah. If you can broadcast them one by one, that'd be awesome.
So what? Please discuss how how do I do that? Let's see. Broadcast a message.
Okay, guys, very interesting. Some really interesting conversations are taking place. And I'm overwhelmed, to be totally honest with you. The reason why I'm overwhelmed, because it's about how authentic some of these conversations have been, and genuine and honest. So this is where the call to action now takes place. So I want people for the next minute, can you just write some key buzzwords or key things that you may have said, and don't overthink it, speed write it, and if you don't want to write, put an emoji or turn your camera off and mute. I just want to be able to get this insight from you guys now, so that I want to be able to give you the direction of travel, what's going to happen post the Impact Festival. Okay, so please write or turn your mics off mute. The floor is yours to reflect and really have this open conversation for the next 8 minutes before I kind of close with the call to action, if that's okay with Ellie. So the floor is yours. Does anybody want to talk? I hate hearing my voice sometimes. So does somebody want to kind of talk over the silence? Or you can hear me sing, which I don't sing, so make your mind up.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back from our breakout room. I'm Heather. I'm a white woman. I use she/her pronouns. And we said lots and lots of things, as I'm sure everybody did. But a couple of things that we kind of drew attention to were that real change is really hard, and it's easy to get kind of, especially in like the charity sector, it's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to be under-resourced, and so then kind of lose your way. And also it takes more time in the initial to be truly inclusive, to get feedback from other people, to kind of run it past people and things like that. But that long-term investment is going to take a lot longer to dismantle those systems. So kind of thinking about how we view it. And the other thing was kind of the importance of accountability culture, and like being open as individuals to being held accountable, and also being willing to hold other people accountable, not just in terms of race, but in terms of all sorts of intersections of identity.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Heather. That was quite a nice summary. Very nice summary there. Does anybody else want to share? Okay, so the key part to that. Does everybody know what the title was of this session was called? It was called Mind the Gap, Addressing Race Inequalities. So now think about the Mind the Gap. Who is the gap? The gap was us. The gap is all about self. We can't expect others to change if we're not accepting the opportunity to listen to others. The gap is sometimes us because sometimes our egos get in the way or our organizational structures don't allow us to. But we don't allow ourselves to be able to fill that gap. Or to be that person that puts our hands up to say, you know, that is not right. I don't believe in what you're saying. I'm not saying I'm going to leave my job, but let's go on a journey together. It's about standing up. It's knowing we need to stand up for what we believe, or when we need to stand up when we see things going wrong. The sense of self is always about nurturing and nurturing those who we want to take on that journey. But if we can't get the self right, issues regarding race is never going to change. Whilst we've kind of developed race, or it's fast-tracked in light of last year's events, let's seize the moment that this doesn't become a sub-headline on a news article or on page 30 of a newspaper. Let's seize the moment that we start to listen and learn from others so that we can start to lead this life that we want to build, not just for us, but for our generation of children and young people. Let's give them the opportunity. Let's give them the stage. If we don't give them the stage, it's always going to be adult-centric, and we're always going to learn by our mistakes. Give the mantle over to young people so that they can help to define their own future rather than the adults. But we have to start to establish that from ourselves. So basically, moving on from this, everybody's now got the opportunity to download the chat. That was the reason why I wanted people to put stuff into the chat, because now it becomes a moment in history that you can take away and you can reflect on that and cause your own call to action, because your action has to start with self. But what we're going to do as part of the FEA is to develop this conversation outside of this room. So we're going to develop conversations that we can talk about racial inequalities and talk about very thematic approaches. So I'm just going to give you a quick summary of what you guys have said, which I would like to take into that conversation outside of the room. So these are the topics that people have spoken about. We're going to talk about governance and leadership. We're going to talk about recruitment, pay and work development. We're going to look at organizational culture and behaviors and language. We're going to look at other models of programming that really engages with children and young people, and that quality of value that teases out, is it culturally responsive to what we should be doing? We're going to then look at what we can develop as targets and accountability that we can help for the sector to move together to create that movement. Whilst developing as members, let's develop as movers and shakers, because that's the most important part, that if we can get ourselves right, we can able to help support that greater future of good. So my name is Jerrel Jackson. I hope that you've had a great session today, and tweet it, like it, comment on it. But thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for collaborating with myself and everybody else from the FEA.
Thank you so much, Jay. And I knew I was right to be so excited about this session. It's lived up to the excitement I had for this, been the one I was looking forward to at the whole Impact Festival, and it's lived up to that name. I think the stuff you said about Mind the Gap, and that starting with self and our leadership and our identities, if we've got any hope of making the education system fairer, it has to start with us, it has to start with our organisations, and then it leads on to the Impact Festival. So much great stuff today. I've personally taken away, and all of our attendees I'm sure have too. We're just going to bring up a quick poll to get some quick feedback, which Ellie's going to bring up now. So if you could all fill that in. And love it. And we're so grateful. If everybody wants to come off mute and give Jay a big round of applause for this session. So appreciate your vulnerability, your energy, your passion for this subject, which we all share. And I'm with you. I've joined the movement, so I hope everyone else has too. So we'll wrap up there when everybody has voted, and just seeing the votes come in. And then we will let you go for the rest of your day. We've got some great sessions still to come for the Impact Festival. We've got Wednesday and Thursday tomorrow. Introduction to impact measurement. Oh no, that's now, sorry, that's happening now. Impact of COVID-19 on widening participation is later today. And then tomorrow we've got bringing enrichment opportunities and real world experiences to all, first thing tomorrow, and scaling systemically for long-term change. So just a sample, take a look at your timetables for other great sessions coming up. Wishing you a fantastic afternoon, and thanks once again, Jay. Bye everyone.